Okay. Good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:30 p.m. and we're going to start the meeting for the Supervisorial District Line Advisory Commission. Let me call the roll call now. Commissioner Bonderpali.
Present.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Here.
Commissioner Monzon Ruiz.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Barber.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lawrence.
Here.
Commissioner Salander.
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Azos is currently absent. Commissioner Bledsoe is absent. Commissioner Albert.
Here.
Commissioner Dinan.
Here.
Commissioner Espinoza is absent. Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Chow. Commissioner Chow.
Oh, hi, good evening. I'm here.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Guerrero is absent. Commissioner Romero.
Present.
Okay, perfect. And we have 4 absent, so we do have a quorum. At this time, I'd like to take the oath of office for our 15th member, Nicole Davis. Ms. Davis, if you could unmute your mic, I'm going to share my screen with the oath. And if you could just repeat it after me. Okay. So raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Nicole Davis,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Perfect, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to item number 4, oral communications and public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the commission on any commission-related topics that are not on the agenda. And with us, we also have Victor Hernandez, who will be helping us in Spanish translation, and also Cindy Chin, who will be providing Mandarin translation if there's any speakers that wish to speak. So for those attending this meeting in Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature in order to organize any public comment. When you hear your name called, I will send you a request to unmute your mic. And once you accept the request, you will begin speaking. You will be given 2 minutes and a timer will be shown on the screen. So Victor, did you want to translate that into Spanish?
Absolutely. Thank you, Suki. Para aquellos que asisten a la reunión en la videoconferencia de Zoom, utilizaremos lo que es la función de raise the hand, levantar la mano para organizar cualquier comentario público. Cuando escuche su nombre, le enviaré una solicitud para activar el micrófono y una vez que acepte la solicitud, podrá usted comenzar a hablar. Se le darán 2 minutos y el cronógrafo se mostrará en la pantalla. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. And just for the record, we do have Commissioner Azos now present. And also we have our alternate, David Chu, present as well. So now is the time to raise your hand if you wish to speak. Okay, I'll allow maybe 10 more seconds. Okay, at this time, I don't see any hand raised for public comment. Back to you, Mr. Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and welcome and good evening, everyone. Before we set the agenda, I do want to also especially welcome our 15th Commissioner, Commissioner Davis. Welcome. I also want to welcome Commissioner Mark Olbert, who was previously an alternate, but is now a full voting member of the Commission following the resignation of Marion Lee. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for making time tonight. This is, as you know, going to be quite a busy September for the Commission with plenty of meetings. And this is really the first of a pretty intense 2-week period of meetings. So just want to appreciate everyone's participation and attendance today. We're going to go ahead and I'm acting as a temporary chair until item 6, when you all elect your chair, at which point I will be happy to hand over the reins to your elected chair. But of course, all the staff, including the attorneys, are here to assist, particularly tonight, which will be the first night for this chair, but going forward as well. So with that, can we have a motion, please, to set the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Terrific. I think I heard.
I'll second it.
I think I heard a motion.
I can second that.
By Commissioner Lawrence and a second by Commissioner Bondrapali.
Okay,
Mr. Clerk, would you please do a roll call?
Perfect, thank you. Since this is a virtual meeting, I'll take the roll call verbally. Commissioner Bondrapali?
Yes.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Barber?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yes.
Commissioner Salander?
Yes.
Commissioner Azos?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Bledsoe is absent. Albert? Commissioner Albert, you might be on mute.
No, you broke up there, Suki. I just didn't hear you. So that's okay. Aye.
Perfect, thank you. Commissioner Dinan?
Yes.
Commissioner Espinoza is absent. Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
Commissioner Chow?
Yes.
Commissioner Guerrero is absent. Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We'll go ahead and move on to item 6, the election of the Commission Chair and Vice Chair. We talked a little bit about this process last week, and thank you to the 3 commissioners who were nominated and by submission. Why don't we go ahead and start with the election of the chair? We received 2 nominations, one for Commissioner Lawrence and one for Commissioner Bondrapali. And before we proceed, can we go ahead and confirm if both those commissioners would be willing to accept that, or continue to be willing to accept that nomination?
Yes.
Yes, I would.
Terrific. Do we have any other nominations for chair at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will have the election between Commissioner Lawrence and Commissioner Bondrapali. Both submitted written materials that were part of your packet today, but we'd also like to afford each just a brief moment now, if they would like, to say some additional words to supplement their written submission. Why don't we go ahead and start with Commissioner Bondrapali.
Hi, everyone. If given the opportunity, I would love to take part as the chair of Supervisorial District Lands Advisory Commission. I spent 4 years serving on the Burlingame Planning Commission with 1 year as a chairman. I'm also looking for opportunities to work within my community to make a difference using my skill set. Because this project is concise, it needs a leader with a streamlined approach and strong experience to ensure this project runs smoothly and effectively. A skill set I know I can provide. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Bondrapali. Commissioner Lawrence.
Good evening, everyone. I think it would be an honor to serve what I asked myself was, since I volunteered to be on the commission, why not take a more responsible role if it presents itself and the commissioners so desire that I take that role. That's why I submitted a background summary of what I've done before. I think you can quickly understand that that role is not new to me, and I certainly would serve at the pleasure of the commission. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence, and before we take the vote, I just want to thank both of you for your willingness to serve not only on this commission, but serve in the chair capacity. We really appreciate it. Under the circumstances, because we have a remote meeting, the way that I propose that we do the vote is that all votes have to be by roll call when we're on a remote meeting like this. And so I would ask the clerk to do a roll call vote. And when your name is called, would you please say the name of the commissioner that you would vote for chair, or state that you are abstaining? Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. And Mr. Mates, we need 8 votes, right?
Yes, and actually, you know what? We do. I think it would be a majority of those present. Is that 8? I'm sorry, I haven't.
The majority of those presents are, so 12. So that would be 7 then, right? Because we have 12 present.
I think that's right. I'll be looked to my to the available deputy county councils here to confirm that that's accurate. It's the majority of those present. Sorry, Brian or David.
Brian, do you want to take this, or you want me to take it?
Oh, I assumed you were.
Oh, okay. You know, so generally speaking, this would be a function of bylaws, which the commission doesn't have. I would be comfortable with a majority of those present under the circumstances. But let's hope we get a majority of the board.
Great, thank you, David. And actually, just one other quick question. I guess we should go ahead and take public comment on this. Would you take before the vote?
Sure.
Would that be appropriate?
Thank you, Mr. Mates. So members of the public, if you wish to speak on this item, this is item number 6, please raise your hand now. I'll allow maybe 10, 15 more seconds. Okay. I don't see any hands raised, so I will take the roll call. Commissioner Bandrapalli. Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Bandrapalli.
Thank you. Commissioner Monzon Ruiz.
Yes, Bandrapalli, please.
Commissioner Barber.
Lawrence, please.
I'm sorry?
Lawrence, please.
Lawrence, got it. Thank you. Commissioner Lawrence?
Jim Lawrence.
Thank you. Commissioner Salander?
Commissioner Lawrence, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Azos?
Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you. Commissioner Bledsoe is absent. Commissioner Albert?
Commissioner Lawrence, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Dinan? Commissioner Dinan?
Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you. Commissioner Espinoza is absent. Commissioner Davis?
Commissioner Lawrence, please.
Commissioner Chow?
Commissioner Lawrence, please.
Commissioner Guerrero is absent. Commissioner Romero?
Commissioner Lawrence, please.
So Commissioner Lawrence has received 9 votes. So Mr. Lawrence, you would be the chair. Back to you, Mr. Mates.
Terrific, thank you. Mr. Clerk, and thank you, Commissioner Lawrence and Commissioner Bontrapalli again for accepting the nomination. And Commissioner Lawrence, I am happy to hand the reins over to you, or I'm also happy to conduct the election for the vice chair if you'd like. It's at your pleasure.
Why don't you do it? I think it's be impartial that way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you much. And I should call you Chair Lawrence. Thank you very much, Chair Lawrence. Let's go ahead and move on to the election of the vice chair. We received one nomination prior to the meeting from Commissioner Romero. Are there any, let me ask, Commissioner Romero, are you still willing to accept that nomination?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Are there any other nominations for vice chair tonight? Seeing none, Commissioner Romero, it's uncontested, but if you would like to give a brief oral supplement to your written materials, please feel free to do so.
Thank you. I'm just honored to be a part of this and honored to help the advisory committee as well as Commissioner Lawrence. So I'm here to help, here to serve our residents, and excited to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Romero, and thank you for being willing to accept the nomination. Why don't we go ahead and do the roll call vote? And in this case, since there's only one candidate, it would just be yes, no, or abstain. Yes being a vote for Commissioner Romero to serve as vice chair. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mates. So I'll start with Commissioner Bontrapalli.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Chan.
Yes.
Commissioner Ruiz.
Yes.
Commissioner Barber.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioner Salander.
Yes.
Commissioner Azos.
Yes.
Commissioner Batso is absent. Commissioner Albert.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Dinan.
Yes.
Commissioner Espinoza is absent. Commissioner Davis.
Yes.
Commissioner Chow.
Yes.
Commissioner Guerrero is absent. And Commissioner Romero.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Congratulations. Back to you, Mr. Mates.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner Romero, or shall I say Vice Chair Romero. And with that, you have all elected your commission chair and vice chair. And I will go ahead and hand it over to Chair Lawrence for item number 7.
Well, thank you. So should I just ask the clerk to read the subject matter? Thank you.
Sure. Now we're in line item number 7, discussion, presentation from Office of Community Affairs on Community Outreach Plan. Ms. Gonzalez.
Hi, Suki. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I hear you.
Can you see me as well?
Yes.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to providing you an update on our presentation on what we're doing with the community outreach to support your efforts and the efforts that are in place. Suki, if you can share that slide, that would be great.
Sure. Do you see that, Emma?
I think it's coming in a bit. Yes, thank you. Good evening. My name is Emma Gonzalez with the County of San Mateo, County Manager's Office of Community Affairs. Today, I will share with you our outreach plan and how we intend to promote, engage, and encourage residents, including those in hard to reach communities, participate in the redistricting community meetings. Much of what will be implemented is based on our success of the 2020 census. San Mateo County, as you may know, led the state of California in the highest self-response rate through the success of this very same outreach plan that I'll be presenting to you this evening. We used a variety of methods, which included in-person outreach, partner communication, digital, video, direct mail, and printed collaterals. Our approach is simple. We will keep messaging simple, short, but yet direct. We will use a variety of communication channels. We'll use community trusted partners to disseminate that message and our messaging. We'll work with community partners in utilizing existing communication channels. And finally, produce messaging in a variety of different languages. Next slide, please. In September, as you can see, we have 6 upcoming meetings and community meetings. The initial outreach plan, are we there? The initial outreach plan will be intense outreach efforts to really encourage, as we said, encourage and engage residents of all to participate in getting into communities with a focused effort into the hard to reach communities. Next slide, please. Tonight, I'm happy to share collateral currently in market. And again, these are in multiple languages, and those languages include Spanish, Chinese, and Tagalog. And we'll use a variety of different platforms, including print and digital. Similar to the Census 2020 approach, we will work with a variety of local ethnic media channels in language to disseminate this information, such as you can see, the San Mateo Daily Journal, Singtel, El Reportero. Next slide, please. As well as the Half Moon Bay Review and Pacifica Tribune, Filipino News, and East Palo Alto Today. As you can see, they're on multiple languages as well. Next slide, please. Additionally, my team is conducting in-field canvassing, flyering, and poster distribution. They target libraries, laundromats, schools, neighborhoods, community organizations, and other areas well known in the community to really get this information out. And there are flyers, posters, and we're using a variety of different formats. We acknowledge that there's a digital divide. So we also provide and do direct mailing, as you could see, into these communities that are, as we see, hard to reach. Postcards were sent to areas in Brisbane, Daly City, North Fair Oaks, East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, which is the Bellhaven community, along with coastside communities and the PO boxes. We're able to really target our approach into zip code using census tract data. So we use data that will really narrow down our targets into those vulnerable communities by census tract. So we're able to really utilize our data knowledge that we are aware of. Next slide, please. Another example that I'd like to share with you this evening, for example, is the PSAs that are currently working, that were in market, such as in Radio Tongan, that is able to, they've translated into Fiji, Samoan, and Tongan, and they're aired every hour in those radio stations. And we also have some other radio stations in language, in English and in Spanish, that are currently running throughout San Mateo County. Next slide, please. Some of our social media graphics also include, and we have that platform, whether they're using Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and Facebook. But both Nextdoor and Facebook can be used by targeted boosted ads by zip code and neighborhoods to really push out specific meetings in communities. As we know that these community meetings are going to be with a special focus in particular targeted areas and cities. And so we're going to emphasize and really boost up those social media graphics and infographics to get into those communities. And again, using targeted zip codes and in different languages, as you can see here today. Next slide, please. One thing that we're also, another approach is, I think is very important that the community get to know our commissioners, such as yourself, all of you here today. So we have Meet Your Commissioner campaign, and we encourage each one of you to participate. It's just a glimpse of what we currently have in market. And so we're really proud and want to be able to share that and really get the voices of why, how the community can get to know their local commissioner in their area. Next slide, please. We'd like to ask, how can you get involved and how you can help us in this effort to engage your current community members to get involved? Encourage members to attend a meeting. Share some of our outreach efforts through your social media platforms, and also participate and Meet Your Commissioner campaign. And that's what I have for you this evening, and I'm happy to take on any questions at this point.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you very much, Emma. And I just wanted to supplement that a bit. Emma's team is really focused on what we call the hard to reach community, and that's how they refer to based on the census outreach, and it's actually a designation within the census world. But that's not the only way that we are spreading the word about your commission and the work you all are doing. We are also promoting through traditional media forms, to the county's general social media accounts, including Nextdoor for targeted to areas when we are having our sort of district focused meetings later on. We're also releasing press releases. So there's a broader campaign as well, but I just want to put in context the work that Emma and her team are doing are really focused on that sort of neighborhood community level, particularly in the areas that we consider hard to reach based on our census. And with that, I'll stop talking and go hand it back to you, Chair Lawrence.
I guess we should ask around the table, are there any other comments, suggestions from the commissioners before we move on to the next item?
Through the chair.
Mr.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Proceed.
Thank you. I just old habits die hard. Didn't want to proceed without the chair's permission. Emma and staff, that presentation looked wonderful. I'm glad there's obviously a lot of thought that went into it. One quick question, and maybe I just missed it in the presentation. Are we allowed under the law to do outreach or to collaborate with places of worship as well? That's sort of if we were, that's a different kind of channel getting into various parts of the community that might be an interesting way of getting to folks who might not otherwise hear from us.
Yeah, great question, Commissioner. And one of the things, and I'll let legal can answer some additional questions on that side, but one thing that I'd like to, and I failed to mention today, was we currently have a social media calendar that goes out on a weekly basis. And I hope each one of you will soon be on that distribution list. And that hits well over 300 community-based partners, including those that have participated, and some of those are our faith-based organizations. And so we have an entire community that gets our information and is shared through their networks. But from a legal side, I'll let the legal team answer that.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the elections code, actually encourages us and requires us to reach out to communities and organizations that are active in particular communities. And so I think, to the extent that, places of worship, provide those services and are active and serve those particular communities, I think it's certainly allowed under the law. I don't see any issue with our collaborating with them, so long as we're, equal in kind of our outreach, to those organizations.
Thank you, Brian and Emma. I don't know what the other commissioners feel like, but I would leave that with staff to think about. It's great that you already have an existing channel, but maybe there's a way to flag it, sort of like, because we all get tons of messages that we don't always tend to read because we get tons of messages. And this one's pretty important because it only happens once every 10 years. So
thank you very much, Commissioner. We'll take that back.
Thank you. Are there other commissions that share the comments or concerns of anything?
Chair Lawrence, I do see two hands raised from Commissioner Dinan and Commissioner Romero. Commissioner Dinan, go ahead.
Yes, hi. I'm in East Palo Alto, and there's been very little presence of the County of San Mateo in a variety of efforts in terms of education and other, census, other areas. What I would say is that, I have the largest social media group in EPA. We have about 7,600 people. I've approached the county on a variety of times saying, hey, this is where people are getting their information. It's where the city is using to distribute notices. I get calls from Carlos Romero all the time asking me to put stuff up because he knows people see it, they use it. I'd encourage the social media folks at the County of San Mateo to dig a little bit deeper and actually go where the people are. There's a variety of groups in East Palo Alto in particular that have thousands of people, and they're kind of untouched by the County of San Mateo in terms of doing outreach. And it's a really quick and easy way to leverage the organizing that I've done and other people have done to reach, 2,000-3,000 people at a time and start a community discussion. I don't know if something like redistricting is necessarily going to light the fire on this one, but certainly just moving forward, whether it's COVID education, vaccinations, or census, things like that, this is a very effective way to do it. And just putting a message on the Facebook page is not sufficient. You actually have to join these groups, and there's groups like this all around the Bay Area in different communities, probably very specific groups that, government agencies are using to do outreach. So that's, on the social media front, that's a obvious and low-hanging fruit to pick. And there's certainly, the County of San Mateo can do a much better job in terms of outreach in East Palo Alto. And that's probably a good, easy way to start.
Through the chair, Commissioner Dinan, thank you for those comments. I two things. Number one, if there are those particular groups in East Palo Alto that you think in particular we should be posting to or be members of, if you would send me that list, I'd really appreciate it. I know we've had some discussions on this sometimes. Frankly, I can't get invited to these groups, but I definitely would love to know what they are and how we can participate. And if you have some that we would love to do more outreach. And also, I'm going to ask later on the clerk to send you all the collateral that we've created too, so that you could post it through your channels if you so desire, because we would love to leverage your networks to get the word out as well.
Yeah, happy to do that.
And Commissioner, through the chair, Commissioner, I'd just like to also let you know is our office is also coordinating all efforts for the COVID outreach and education throughout the county, including East Palo Alto, but countywide, as well as the emergency rental relief program. So we're well versed, but I do appreciate it and love to, as Justin mentioned and Mr. Mates mentioned, any additional contacts that we'd love to be able to leverage. That would be great. Thank you for sharing.
We had another commissioner that wished to speak. I think she raised her hand.
Commissioner Romero, followed by Commissioner Salander.
I was just gonna sort of reiterate a couple of things. So I'm assuming that for privacy reasons, we can't see the list of the 300 community-based partners. Is that an accurate assumption, Ms. Gonzalez?
No, we have that public information. Okay. We don't share publicly if it's a personal email address. If they're organizations, we have those organizations available, but we typically have them by an individual's email address, not the organization email address.
Because one of the things that we have found helpful is when reaching out to community-based, especially like Justin was saying, sometimes when the county doesn't have like an in already or an invite, is to be copied on an email. So, say for example, a church in Daly City, and then if you copy me, for example, if I attend that church, then that makes it's a win-win, right? Because it formalizes the email that it's coming from the county and that it's important, right? And that there's a weight that's coming, that's, it's weighted heavily, like it's a formal email, but then there's also a trusted person, a trusted leader. So if when sending out the collateral, if we can also have access to that list, and then that would be great, I think, just to.
Commissioner Romero, on that, if I may, I think that's a great idea. And I think you're absolutely right that connection is often what gets emails more likely to be read. What Emma's referring to is a list of about 300 community-based organizations that have volunteered and told us they want to be involved originally with census outreach, but a lot of these groups also became involved during the pandemic with various forms of pandemic outreach. So that list is a list of very active folks. Every week, the Office of Community Affairs distributes certain messages to that list to help amplify whatever. It's often these days it's often a health education message, but it's also the rental assistance program and other things that are going on. one idea would be if there are things like your church, for example, in Daly City, if you would potentially introduce us, if you have some folks who you might want us to be able to distribute to, that would be a great way, and we can coordinate offline about how we do that, but introduce us with your email so because they may not have been touched by us by the census, they might not know what the Office of Community Affairs is, but an introduction like that would really help us get to more organizations. And that's actually, I wanna put it to all the commissioners, we really appreciate your service on this commission. And it's also a way that maybe we haven't talked to you and connected with you in other ways before. So this is an opportunity for us to learn more about your community. And if you want to contact any of us offline too, if you don't feel comfortable necessarily talking about it in a public meeting, we'd be happy to take your notes about organizations you think that we should be connected to, networks, Facebook groups that you think that we should be connected to, because this is really how you can help us learn more about your communities through this process as well.
And what we send out, if I could add, our weekly communication calendar is really set up and such as a turn the key model. It really is a cut and paste, turn the key. So we have all the messaging, including digital footprint, printed material in different languages, and all organizations can use it as relevant in their own community. So happy to share that with you as well, Commissioner Romero.
Next, we have Commissioner Monzon Ruiz, followed by Commissioner Azos. Go ahead, proceed.
I think Commissioner Salander was before me.
Oh, okay. I think her hand went down and then went up. So go ahead, Commissioner Salander.
Yeah, I did go down. Sorry about that. I just wanted to quickly say first, Emma, I thought your presentation was great so far. It sounds like there's a lot of great plans already in place, which is really awesome to see and to learn about. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to what the hard to reach communities are, what the census has identified, and if that includes people from a diversity of ages. From working the phone bank in the last election, I know that a lot of people in assisted living facilities sometimes are very isolated with access to information. And then conversely, is there anything we do related to young people with schools or anything like that you might be able to provide a little insight on would be awesome.
Yeah, thank you. We've actually started our outreach through census. We do TikTok. We do Reels. And so we're really targeting our youth community, 18 and over, especially through this approach. And our trusted messengers are partners. We have currently we work with well over 45 community partners that are currently strongly engaged with community outreach and for COVID, as well as emergency rental relief program. So we're also leveraging their knowledge and their efforts. So wherever we do a COVID outreach, we include now DLAC. And those hard to reach communities are really such as North Fair Oaks, predominantly Latino community, 75%. We look at our reading levels. All our outreach is in a third grade reading level. So we also look at North Fair Oaks, Bellhaven, East Palo Alto. There are communities within South San Francisco. When we do look at census, back down to the census track and block groups so we can mail things directly, that's why we do in print. So Brisbane is also a community that was considered hard to reach. Surprisingly, you may or may not know this, but along the coast, there's 30,000 P.O. boxes. Quite often, many of our community members rely on P.O. boxes. So we do a print, and that's why we also did posters in the P.O. boxes. So we target our, Pescadero, La Honda, El Granada, and as well as Half Moon Bay in those particular communities. And then we have also some census tracts in Daly City. So we work with the rental housing apartment managers. For example, Westlake Apartment, we have a direct into Westlake Apartments, and we work with that manager specifically to get outreach and education into those communities. So these are well-established relationships and approaches that we've used, but we do have to target all communities of all ages and all diversity. So using, again, it's not a one one model fits all, right? And so when we're using, we are using the TikTok, we are using Instagram, we're doing Reels, and we find those interaction, it's really an engagement to get people to listen, as well as and to participate. But we do have 6 meetings really closely together. And so we are faced with some challenges of a very tight schedule and getting all the community members into and engage them into these meetings.
Awesome, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Monzon Ruiz, followed by Commissioner Azos.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Emma, did you can we reach out, partner up with a local library in South San Francisco when we had district elections a few years ago? We participate on workshops in the libraries, and there was very good information and how actually they can participate with the mapping tools. We had representation from different community members, but we found that the libraries were good partners. Also, as you mentioned, we have a lot of meetings trying to achieve the outreach. I personally have been active in my community, and what we noticed, one of the ways that we get better feedback or participation, at least in South San Francisco downtown, is when we do an activity and we bring something to the community so they can get close to us and they ask what it's all about. It's pretty hard. We can pass all the information that we would like to, but we gotta ask ourselves how effective it's going to be, because giving the flyers and sending by email or text, it could be great as an information, but actually how much feedback we can get out of that. We can be mindful of that. We can send information to everybody, but if it's not effective, I think on the hard-reached community, such as South San Francisco, and hands-on, a presence, a workshop, could be much beneficial. I don't know how we can do that. Maybe a few commissioners, we can do a workshop. We can do the same thing, going to a different hard-reached community so we can help each other. I would like to suggest that it's more hands-on, even though we live in a text life, the hard-reached community, they're still doing the face-to-face. And what I'm bringing something to the community, could be a raffle, it could be something, because it's their time. For a family member to give away their time, their family time on a Saturday or an evening, we have to give them something. It doesn't have to be a lot of things, but something, to just compensate for their kids, maybe toys. That's what we found very successful, at least in South San Francisco.
Yeah, thank you very much for those suggestions. And one of the things, as you guys might be aware, is we also face the challenges that many cities are also going through redistricting community meetings. So you have the county one, the city ones, and all the different jurisdictions. And so there's competing, I won't lie. I'm going to tell you, as you guys know, that those same meetings are taking place within city jurisdictions as well. And we are partnering with the libraries, and I'll double check and work more closely with South San Francisco, along with all of them. We're currently very active working with the libraries now. The libraries just opened up. Many of them were not doing in person up till recently and started to open up briefly come September. So that's a change in person. We also have to be very mindful of the in-person activity given the current conditions of COVID and the rising of cases. So, it is a balance. It is a balance that we have to work with and be mindful of that at the same time.
And through the chair, if I could just add on to that, I think Commissioner Monzon, your points are really well taken. And I think they're similar to what we have found in our other forms of outreach and that kind of engagement, that just an information dump is not really that engaging for a community. And if you are aware of anything, I mean, I think to a point that was earlier made, district lines may not be the most engaging topic generally without a lot of sort of background on it. So if you're aware of any events in the community where you think that there could be an opportunity for us to maybe table, or something that, people are coming together for something else, but maybe we could also get the word out about this, please let us know. We'll try our best to get there. We do have, outreach staff within the Office of Community Affairs that can go out and we can combine it with other things too. Maybe we combine it with some other health event we might be sponsoring or something along those lines. But if you know of events in the community, please pass them on to me or Emma, and we will try to see if there's a way for us to leverage those existing community events.
Will do. Thank you.
Commissioner Azos, followed by Commissioner Bandra-Pali.
Yeah, my question's for Mr. Mates. What's the best way to reach out? I have an organization that I think I'd like to see a little bit more county involvement with.
Sure. If you'd like to send, if you know them well enough that you want to just do an introduction, if you want to send an email and copy me and or Emma Gonzalez, and you can just start with me. I've got an easy email address to remember. It's just my first initial J and my last name Mates @smcgov.org. That would be a great way to make an introduction.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Commissioner Bandra-Pali.
Hi. I was wondering if we can leverage the Lions Club and Rotary Club around the county, and I'm happy to help with the Lions Club. And also, wondering farmers market is another opportunity where we can have a table there in different cities, and also newsletters that are sent out by different school districts, and especially PTA are missing. When PTA newsletter comes out from PTA, everybody reads just to check, what's going on in the school. So those are low-hanging fruit, I would say.
Thank you.
Commissioner Romero, you have your hand raised.
I was just going to add to that. I think that's a great idea, Commissioner Nirmala. I was thinking, as baseball season has started, a lot of us are willingly and unwillingly at baseball games for a really long time. And I think that's a great opportunity. I'm just thinking to how to make the best use of our time while we're there. But I think like those kind of things, we just have to, I totally agree with Commissioner Irmes. In South City, Daly City, a lot of our communities of color, they're still meeting in person. And if, when we do this info dumping, like it's just in one ear, it's like a waste of a tree. And so I'll connect with Emma and Justin and see if we can just sort of think maybe we could pilot it at there's the games with a lot of the schools are across the county, right? So, you're playing St. Gregory, St. Matthews, OLA, St. Veronica. So there's just a lot of opportunities to sort of like cross-pollinate with other folks across the county.
Well, thank you very much. And we'll definitely, I look forward to hearing from you. And this is a great opportunity as well. If any of you are interested in also participating, being that voice and champion within your community, we can provide all those collaterals as well. But thank you, because we are a small team, but we can't get the countywide. I'm also going to share that with you. I can't be at every baseball game as much as I would love my staff to be at every game, but they won't be able to be at every game. So I want to also manage those expectations as well.
Chair Lawrence, should we take public comment at this time?
I think we should, yes.
Okay, great. Members of the public, we're discussing item number 7. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand now. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before I move on, I'd like to say that I will avail myself to 3 meetings. I agree with the commission from South San Francisco. It's a community that really is hands-on, And I found that even here in my community, when I was a little bit more active. So I will avail myself if there's a meeting, a Saturday event, et cetera, in order to reach out and at least discuss this matter, because I really want to try to push this into those communities that are underserved. With that, let's move to item 8 on the agenda.
Sure. So that is a discussion item presenting regarding mapping tools. We have Kristen Parks.
Hi, good evening. I think this is a beautiful segue because you're talking about hands-on interaction with community members, and I'm going to introduce you to the online mapping tools tonight. And so I'm hoping that all of you, when you get a chance, can try out one or both of these tools and become as much experts as you may want to. But I'm just gonna start really quick with a few PowerPoint slides. Then I'm going to jump onto the website and show you the online mapping tools. So the first thing that I wanted to start with was just going back to the population data, just because this is going to drive the district maps that members of the public create. So what we're looking at, right, is trying to create 5 supervisorial districts where each district contains about 152,888 people. And this data you see here is for the current districts. This is not our final data set, although we did receive word from the state of California that we will get that final official redistricting data on September 20th. Should be relatively close to what we have here with some changes. But what I want to point out here again is that of our 5 districts currently, it does look like 2 of those districts, districts 2 and 3, are a bit overpopulated relative to this ideal size of 152,888, and that 3 of the districts, 1, 4, and 5, are underpopulated. That's what those negative numbers mean relative to what looks like the ideal district size. Again, we don't need to create districts that are equal down to the very last person, but we do need to get them, we do want to get them more population balanced than they currently are, so that that deviation from the ideal, that total deviation, is lower than the current 9.73%. So for those of you who are more, visual learning people, the districts here that have the plus signs, the green plus signs, those are the 3 districts that, based on the data we have now, will need to add population as part of this process. And the 2 districts with the red minus signs are the districts that may need to lose some population based on the current numbers. The reason I'm telling you this is when you or any member of the community sits down to draw a map, the first thing that you are going to think about is drawing a district with the approximate ideal number of people. So, you already saw this from me. I'm not going to go back over it, don't worry. But just to remind you that under federal law, that is the first criteria for redistricting, is to ensure equal population from district to district. The other things that you will be able to think about are communities of interest, are the boundaries of cities and census designated places, and trying to minimize the division of those jurisdictions. So the public mapping tools that we have available already on the SMC District Lines website are District R and Maptitude. I'm gonna really briefly show you both of them tonight, but keep in mind there are slightly more detailed tutorial videos on the website. What we don't have yet, and you may have noticed this, is paper mapping. And the paper mapping kits we are waiting to produce until after September 20th when we get that official data. We don't want the county to be printing a bunch of paper maps and then having to reprint them when we have the final official redistricting numbers. So that's why we don't have those for you yet, but let's go ahead and check out those public tools. So I'm gonna stop sharing for 1 second, get out of the PowerPoint.
Sorry, I had a question on that. You showed two numbers there. One was the total population and one was the voting age population. Are those, and when we're thinking about substantially equal, should we be thinking about the full population or we should be thinking about the voting age?
Correct. So we're thinking about the total population when we're thinking about the population equality. What we're thinking about when we're looking at the voting age population, the citizen voting age population, that helps us to ensure that we're complying with the Voting Rights Act, because the Voting Rights Act is concerned with voters. So we look at citizens who are over 18 in those different
wonderful.
groups.
So
yeah, so that's why you get both of those.
Do the tools show both as well?
They do, and I'm going to show you that right now.
Wonderful.
Thank you for that question. Well-timed question. All right. So if you go to smcdistrictlines.org, you are going to click on the Draw a Map tab, and that is where you'll find the online mapping tools. The first one is District R. So opening District R, this is a very, very easy tool. I do want to say that this tool does not have the most up-to-date census data. So that's why I'm going to encourage you and members of the public to click on this red button, which is identifying a community of interest, as opposed to building districts, because it doesn't have the most up-to-date population numbers in this tool. This is a tool better served for identifying neighborhoods and communities of interest, which of course are important to the redistricting process because state law says we should try to minimize the division of neighborhoods and communities of interest. So we click on identify a community. We're taken to this map tool that is very easy. You can click and drag, you can zoom in, and what you're going to do is simply use the paintbrush. So this hand icon here is how you click and drag. The paintbrush is how you start drawing the community. The eraser will erase. And there are data layers that you will be able to see. If we want to look at current district boundaries, there they are. It will show population eventually once we start looking at it, but again, that population number is not the most up to date. So let's say I am going to draw my neighborhood. My neighborhood is, people who love to use a park. So I'm going to call it park users. You can say why this community should be contained in one supervisorial district, all of that, that's great. So using this paintbrush, I can go ahead and draw a community of interest. And the brush size is either going to collect several census blocks, right? And as I hover over them, they become highlighted. When I click on them, that's when they get added. And I can click bit by bit, or I can click and drag. Okay, you see it's not necessarily picking up all of them. If you take this paintbrush, make it smaller, you can go and click one by one on each census block. That's what these little gray areas are. Those are census blocks, right? So there we go. Let's say I made this community of interest. Obviously, it's a little strange because it has some holes in it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. But when we click evaluation, it will tell us, the population here estimate, and that'll give us a sense of that. We can look also at some of these variables, but again, this tool is less useful. I want to kind of steer you away from the data side of it and just keep you on the drawing side. So just like the paintbrush, the eraser can also get increased in size and decreased. So I'm going to erase. And really the way I describe this tool is that this is the online version of a paper map. Paper map, you are literally going to sit down with your pencil, your colored pencils, or what have you. This is very similar. And once you create this community and you want to submit it, you simply click save. And it automatically saves it. It gives you a link that you can use to share it. You are able to save it as a work in progress. And when you navigate back to the website, it will pull it up. You do not have to log in or create an account. Or you can click share now, which makes it publicly available to everyone who is using this tool by clicking share to gallery. So I'm gonna not do either of those things because this is just a demo map. When it says saved, it means it has been saved on the back end, meaning it has been sent directly to District R. And what NDC will do is prior to the meetings where we look at maps, we will actually go to District R and get all of the maps that have been submitted. So this tool is super easy. I'm going to move on to the next one. But this is a good starting point for folks to start interacting with maps, with, thinking about things, census blocks, how to draw neighborhoods or communities, right? And just a reminder that under state law, neighborhoods and communities of interest are actually considered more important than your cities, right? So if there's a neighborhood that, for instance, crosses, is both in San Mateo and Belmont, then not dividing that neighborhood under state law would be more important than not dividing the cities. So that's why it's important to have tools where we're focused on community of interest.
Is there a way to aggregate the pieces, like to look at neighborhoods from many maps together? Or is there like a heat map overlay where we can say these tend to group together, these tend to not?
So these will be submitted individually. You can submit as many as you want. What NDC sometimes does, if we have time for it, is create that overlay. In fact, that's something I'm doing this week for another client, is I'm taking all of these community of interest maps that have been submitted by the public, and I am overlaying them on one map so that they can see those. So yes, it's possible. Do we have time for it? Is it going to be necessary? I'm not entirely sure, but it is possible.
I mean, I also worry about it with density, right? It's going to be very different if we have 20 communities of interest that are submitted versus if we have 300 of them. Like 300 of them, you won't be able to piece anything out from it. If you had 20, you might be able to see it. You also, like, it's not like I want to do a clustering thing, but I'm wondering whether there's some way to say, there's a bunch of people who all say the coastline is an important district, so that gets lumped together. Does something like that exist, or am I kind of off on this one?
Well, so that's exactly what we're going to be asking the public to come to the commission and tell us, right? And they can do that with maps, but keep in mind that most members of the public are not going to be submitting maps, but they should still come and tell us things like that, because they can send emails, they can make public comment, they can say, the coastal communities are important to be kept together, and here are where I understand their boundaries to be. That doesn't have to be communicated on a map. NDC and the commission will be collecting all of the public input as part of the public record. That will include maps drawn on napkins, as well as things that are simply described with words.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Okay, let me show you the more fun tool, the more advanced tool, which is Maptitude. So Maptitude, you do have to create a user account for. However, you don't need to give them your email address. You don't need to confirm it. So if you're a new user, I guess you do have to give them an email address. Maybe not, maybe that's optional. But anyway, I do have an account here and I'm gonna log in, but I don't want that to discourage anyone from using this tool. The other great thing about this tool is that you can use it in different languages and every aspect of it will be translated. So once you log into it, the very first thing it's going to say, it's going to show that you can open up the existing districts. My suggestion is that you create a new plan. And you can start with a blank map where you won't see the existing supervisorial districts. If you're like me, I like to start with the existing districts on the map so that I can see how what I'm doing is changing from the existing boundaries. Once people start using this tool, there will be shared maps that you can look at that come from the public. And so you could take a map submitted by the public and use that as your starting point and then make changes to it as well. So we're going to create a new plan using the existing districts as our baseline. Okay, and I'm going to just call this demo 9821. So we know it's not anything submitted by a member of the public. And of course, I'm not going to draw all 5 districts. We don't want to be here all night. But what you see here is the zoomed out view. And these are the current population numbers. So these are the most up to date that we have. And what you see here, these percentages are the percent deviation from that ideal population size, right? So you see that the positive numbers, 4.33%, that means District 2 is 4.33% overpopulated relative to the ideal. So you see that already here. You have your normal tools here for clicking and dragging, zooming in, zooming out. And then if I zoom in, I can draw a box to zoom in, or I can click a point. If I want to go back to the original unzoomed in, I click the undo. And the other thing that I really like about this tool is there's extensive help available. So when you click on the help tab, it will pop up a sidebar that will walk you through every little piece. So I definitely recommend having this open when you're using the tool for the first time. What you have over here, the toolbox, this is where you are going to go when you are actually drawing your districts. The changes here tell you what the pending changes are for what you're creating. If you pop open districts, this shows you again some of that data that you already saw in my PowerPoint from the current districts. This is showing you the current districts. Options here is going to give you the option to see some of that data that you were asking about. So perhaps let's zoom in here. And what we can do here is click on theme. And perhaps we want to look where renters are. Suddenly we do get a heat map of renters. And here's our legend down here. These are displayed as decimals, but keep in mind these are percentages. So any of these blocks that we're looking at that are red have 75 to 100% renters, right? So this is, maybe I want to look at that to help me draw districts or make decisions about where boundaries could be. Perhaps I want to look at Asian American voting age, citizen voting age population. That becomes another heat map. The things that you're seeing on the map that you want to just keep in mind are that these gold lines here are the current districts. it can be rather difficult to see the cities and towns and census places. If I remove the theme, it gets a little bit easier, right? You can see that the cities. Yes?
Yes, just Kristen, it's Commissioner Olbert. Just a quick question. Is there a list someplace that specifies what those themes are other than the acronyms like the one you pulled up about Asian citizens voting age? I'm not sure I would have figured that out. But.
Oh yeah, so that's very simple, and I'm happy to create that list for you. But it's really just from the Census Bureau. CVAP is citizen voting age population. This is the way that we look at race and ethnicity, because primarily when we're looking at it, we are keeping in mind that we do not want to diminish or dilute voting power of any of these protected class groups. But yes, I'm happy to create a list for you of what those are, because it's not in this tool. It doesn't explain that. So you will find jargon, and I'm wondering, we can put that on the website as part of the FAQs, because I do think I have that available. That's a great point. Thank you. Make note of that.
May I ask you one follow-up question related to those themes?
Of course.
I presume that we are basically limited to the list that you showed in the drop down. But for example, I didn't see something and maybe the census doesn't track this, percentage of population engaged in agricultural activities. Are there other data sources that can be fed in? Is there other, or are we limited to those? And are we limited to those by law, or is that just what's?
Yeah, this is a great question. On this particular tool, we are limited to those themes. However, we will be creating a interactive map that you can view all of the submitted maps on. And we do have lots of additional demographic data. We can look at other things, school districts, other boundaries, anything like that. However, I would just say to keep in mind that in terms of the criteria we're supposed to be looking at, right? It is those communities of interest, and then the cities, the neighborhoods, and the census designated places. Those are the ones that we are required to consider. Everything else is sort of interesting and might be useful in defining a community of interest. So we can make a lot of additional layers available, not on this tool, but on a map that we can post on the website that is just for viewing, if that makes sense. One that, not where you're going to draw on it, but where you can view.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I'm going to go ahead and show you really quickly how you draw a district in here. So I'm going to zoom in. And let's say I want to do something crazy, like try to put Half Moon Bay and East Palo Alto into a district. So I'm always going to be operating with this toolbox when I'm drawing. And the weird thing here is you're starting with the source, which means where you're pulling from. And so right now it's all, but I could say I want to only pull from one of the existing districts. I'm going to stick with all. And the target is, where am I putting those things? Well, I'm not going to put them into any current districts, although you could, right? If you said you simply want to resolve the underpopulation in District 4, you could simply say, okay, we're going to select from District 3, and we're going to take part of District 3 to put it in District 4. So you could do that. But I'm going to draw a new district just to show you how to do that. So my source will be everything, whatever I draw and select, and it will create a new district for me. And the selection is just asking me what level of granularity I want. Block is the smallest, all the way up to, the census place. You don't need to worry too much about this. I'm going to do block because it will basically fine tune the lines as much as possible. You can use the point and click to literally click block by block, and it will select each block. I like to use the shape tool. What happens with the shape tool is I will draw 4 lines that are connected, right? And it will pull in to the best of its ability everything within those lines. So I click there, and you can sort of see this blue line here. When I release it, it draws that first part. Oh, I need to get rid of those things. Okay, now we can draw a box. Click, go down. I'm gonna go all the way over here. And then I'm closing this box here. And you see it will highlight all of the blocks that I pulled up. And it hasn't actually created this district yet. It is simply selected all of this stuff. You can see under this changes box here that what I have selected is 178,025 people. So that's the number of people I've selected for my new crazy Half Moon Bay to East Palo Alto district. And if I really want to, if I say, yeah, that looks good, that's what I want, I click the check mark and it will create that district. It doesn't want me to create a district. Says this is going to be a 6th district. It's not a 6th district. It's just asking me to name it. And it's telling me I'm now that I created a district that is overpopulated, right? So, you know, if I wanted to then create another new district, I go to target new district, source all. In reality, if you're going to just want to draw from scratch, you probably don't want to draw over the current districts. The better thing to do with the current districts is what I suggested. You're going to take the underpopulated districts and move bits of population into, or from the overpopulated into the underpopulated. So that's the best way to use this. This is a very powerful, complicated tool. I don't expect this one to be intuitive or super easy to use for anyone. I would direct folks to watch this as a 10-minute video that we have on how to use it. And I will be also demoing these tools for the public again during the workshop meetings. And just to wrap this up, you can submit partial maps on either of these tools. So if you just want to draw your neighborhood or you just want to draw your district, a member of the public can do that. They don't have to do everything. So we NDC every map that is received through the tools, through email, on napkins, on the paper maps. We professionally process all of those maps and present them back to you at meetings so that you can see everything that's been submitted by the public. And of course, you know, we don't know, are we gonna get 20 maps or 300? I would say we're gonna probably get more than 20 maps from the public, but we probably won't get 300. I don't know, it depends on how good your outreach is. And seeing Emma's presentation, you have some incredible outreach. I am going to pause now, take some questions. And of course, there are members of the public that want to comment at this time too.
Well, thank you. I think that was a great presentation. I do have one quick question. Numerically, what's our range? Right now we're 10%, you know, one district, it seems like. What's the given range? Is it 2 or 3% that we're driving for? Is that the goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently you are just under 10% total deviation. And what that total deviation means for anyone who, you know, hates numbers and math That's simply just the deviation, meaning the difference between the largest population district and the smallest population district. So there is one federal court case that says that anything under 10% total deviation, any map, is presumptively constitutional. However, we recommend most of our clients aim for 5% total deviation or lower. So that, yeah, when you say, are we looking for 1 to 2%, that would be great. Sometimes you wouldn't, sometimes you might be okay with a slightly higher total deviation because that's what's necessary to comply with the Voting Rights Act or some other important consideration.
Okay, so the Voting Rights Act really is going to take more precedence than the overall percentage because we want to keep those neighborhoods together.
Once that percentage is under 10%, then yes.
Yeah.
But again, that I will always defer to the legal counsel on these legal questions.
Now, you said you're going to receive, could be 20 maps or 300 maps. The process is, will we see all 300 maps?
You can if you want to.
No. So are there guidelines that says, the commission is going to see, X maps that pertain or adhere to these guidelines?
Yeah, so that's what my job is. Once we receive all of those maps, I will group them into themed groups, as well as let you know which of the maps meet legal criteria and which ones don't. Okay. At least when we're talking about folks who submit all 5 supervisorial districts on a map, I will let you know this will be a map that doesn't meet the equal population. Here's a map that does. So I process all of those and group them into hopefully more easily digestible pieces of information and organization for you. They will also all be available on the website on that interactive review map.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let me turn the meeting back to Suel so he can get the other commissioners a chance to talk. I see some hands raised.
Chair, I do see Commissioner Salander, her hand is raised, followed by Commissioner Albert.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about District R. So you mentioned that it doesn't have the most updated population data. Is that something that will happen after the 20th or something we shouldn't expect from that tool at all?
Yeah, I don't know 100%. I am personally not expecting it from that tool. Okay. If it happens, I will make sure to let you all know, but you will also be able to see it on the tool. It does at least tell you. Right now, the language it uses, I believe, is projected 2020 population, right? You're going to be looking for, actual.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Albert?
Thank you, Suki. And thank you, Kristen. Another great presentation this week. 2 quick questions. One was, I'm just curious about in practice, while supervisorial boundaries don't necessarily need to follow city boundaries, in practice, how often do they? Are there a lot of exceptions where there are things that don't follow city boundaries, or is it actually fairly common for them to follow a city boundary?
So it really depends on how large of population the cities are, right? Because we are having to balance these 5 districts by population. So if we can do that, maintaining the city boundaries, then we do that. I would say it's quite common for counties to have to divide cities. I'm thinking of Ventura County has some of its cities divided across 3 supervisorial districts. And, some of those cities are not happy about that, right? And they will come participate in the process and they will tell their commissions, hey, we would like to, if you're gonna divide us only 2 ways. San Mateo County, you can look at it, but in general, San Mateo County does a fairly good job of not dividing cities.
Yeah, that's from your comment. That's what I would expect, because I don't think there's any one city in San Mateo County that's at 150,000 population yet. Although I think Daly City is getting close.
So Mark, if I may, just to provide some additional context, because I was involved in the last redistricting process, which was actually only in 2013. So the first thing I would note is that, and I think she alluded to this, but I just want to be very clear. The criteria actually require, it's the third criteria, that to the extent practical, the geographic integrity of a city or census designated place shall be respected. So the criteria actually require, to the extent practical and consistent with the other criteria, that cities maintain their integrity. And so this was a big issue when we were involved in redistricting back in 2013. And both the District Lines Advisory Committee at that time, as well as especially the board, wanted to minimize the number of cities that were divided. And I think we've ended up dividing about 5 of the cities: San Bruno, South San Francisco, Belmont, perhaps NDC can correct me.
Menlo Park? Menlo Park?
Yeah. Menlo Park, correct. Yeah. And so this was a big issue. And yeah, the goal is, to the extent feasible, to maintain the integrity of cities.
But thank you, David, for the clarification. As I recall, it is not, and they may not be in strict rank order, but aren't there other priorities that actually come ahead of that?
Yep, there's 2. One is the easiest one, which is geographical contiguousness, which basically means no little, you can't grab places from different places. And then the other, and this is the primary focus of these meetings, is communities of interest.
Thank you, which is actually a good segue into my second question. If this is a long answer, we can maybe address it at a future meeting. I'm actually struggling a little bit with trying to understand the concept of community of interest. Let me give you a silly example. Let's say all of the left-handed golfers in San Mateo County decided that we absolutely needed to have more golf courses, and they organized themselves regardless of, and they mostly lived in one particular part of the county. Does something like that qualify as a community of interest? Because communities of interest almost to some extent sound to me like self-defined things. It's not like looking at the lines on a map going, well, that's San Carlos, that's Belmont. It's how do people choose to organize their lives? And if there's any clarification you can give me on that so I can understand the concept better, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think it would give you a couple additions, but you're correct that a community of interest is self-defined. However, we want it to be defined not just by those characteristics, but also geographically. So we would want people to be able to say, here's where the left-handed golfers are in the county. We're all around, I don't know. I'm thinking of Top Golf in Burlingame. That's not actually a golf course, whatever. So that they would have to have a geographic area. The other thing to keep in mind is there are tons of communities that share interests geographically, but what we're concerned with are ones that want to be grouped together within one district for the purpose, so that they can be represented at the county level, so they can be represented fairly and effectively by the Board of Supervisors. So we're particularly concerned with communities that may feel like they are being divided across different districts, right? So I don't know, if you think about, maybe there's a community of interest that is people living in the mobile home parks, right? And they feel like because the county regulates things relative to mobile home parks, they want to all be in one district so that they have one supervisor that they can bring their concerns to and work closely with, right? So that's the, hopefully that clarifies it a little bit.
Yes, it does. And in fact, I'll just say that one thing that was in your data set that you showed us was renters. And that's, I could see that potentially being a community of interest. But there could very well be others, it sounds like, but that's a little bit of the squishy part of this.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any other questions?
Lawrence, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay.
Ask if members of the public wish to speak on this item. This is item number 8. So now is the time to raise your hand if you wish to speak. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Back to you, Chair.
Well, let's move on to then item 8, discussion of upcoming hearing schedule.
Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, item 9.
Item 9, thank you.
Item 9, sorry.
I'll go ahead and take this one. And in a moment, I'll ask Suki to put up the schedule. But we sent one to you earlier for the meetings that we have tried to schedule in September. Just by way of some more context, because I know it's a lot of meetings in a short amount of time, and I know we're talking about an information dump. I know there's a lot of information and dates coming at you. So just a bit of context on these upcoming September meetings. The Board of Supervisors wanted you to hold a meeting in every district. And in a non-pandemic year, that would mean we would find physical locations for us all to meet with members of the community in those districts, city halls, libraries. We were doing that sort of thing. That's clearly not something that we're going to be doing in the pandemic. It's not something, we don't want to encourage gatherings of that size. And so we are going to have these meetings remotely by Zoom. But the point of the meetings is still the same. The latest census data is not yet available. So people really can't make those maps yet, but they can learn about the process and they can give testimony to you all about their communities of interest, to Commissioner Olbert's point, how they define communities of interest. Some may be ones you're aware of, some may be things that we haven't thought of. We'll see what folks say. All of that testimony, you're going to hear all of it. The meetings will be recorded. In addition, we will be transcribing all of the public comment into a matrix so that you can see, oh, on this date, I remember that person from Half Moon Bay talked about this language minority on the coast side that really should be kept together. And it will be there for the public to view as well. It won't be live. We'll need a little bit of time to put those together. But the point of these initial meetings in September is really just to start the engagement process, help get the word out, have you all start hearing from folks. As Kristen has outlined, some of this is a pretty technical process, right? I don't mean this negatively. It's a little bit like map nerdy, right? You got to be really interested in maps. I mean, it's census data. I don't mean that negatively. It's inherently like a nerdy topic, but that's fine. That's what we're engaged in. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way for the community to let you know what they think is important. And so these meetings are an opportunity for folks to just come out and verbally tell you about their communities of interest or other things about how they feel that they or their community should be represented at the County Board of Supervisors level. And so that's why, there's a lot of meetings. We would love it if you all could make it to every meeting. We understand that that's probably unlikely and that you all have other jobs and lives to get to. We of course need a quorum at every meeting, but these really won't be action meetings. They'll be listening. It's really a listening tour, if you will. And we'll be recording it so that you can all digest it live or after the fact. We have schedule them to be a range of accessibility. While each meeting will have a theme of a district, because they're remote, they can be accessible to anyone in any part of the community to comment on. So the way we've done the outreach is, all are welcome. This meeting will have special focus on the communities of District 1, and we'll list them out on the outreach. So folks know that would be a great one to go to if you live in District 1, but you can also make comments at any of these meetings. We have night meetings, we have weekend meetings, we have weekday meetings, we have day meetings. There's a lot in there. an attempt to try to be as accessible to the community as possible. This is not the end of the meeting schedule. We are in the process of developing, and you'll see the next set of meetings, which will be likely in October. And that is once the map data is out there, once folks can start drawing maps, can start maybe having more specific comments or testimony about particular lines and where they want drawn. It's an opportunity for you all to start maybe considering some specific maps. Those will happen in October. Right now, we are planning approximately 2 of those, but there is time in the schedule to have more if needed. But those will be potentially a more engaging for you all, a chance for you all to discuss amongst each other about the feedback that you've received, the input you've received, and how to reflect that in the map that you ultimately recommend to the Board of Supervisors. So with that context, I would ask Suki if you could please put up the list of the meetings for September, the remaining meetings. Great. So starting with this weekend, this Saturday's meeting on the 11th, what we've tried to do is take them essentially in district order. So Saturday, the 11th, will be the District 1 themed. Again, it's really kind of marketing or branding so that folks who really want to speak on District 1 can feel like they have a meeting that they can go to, but we'll receive public comment from anyone in the county about any community. And then District 2 will be on the 13th. District 3 was originally scheduled for September 16th, but we've had that meeting. As you can see, it's tentatively set for September 23rd. Once we're able to lock that in, we'll let you all know. And all of this is posted on the website, so the community can obviously have the schedule and the Zoom links. And so on through September 20th, and then the District 3 meeting rescheduled for the 23rd. That will be the September schedule. And then, like I said, we'll be following up with the October public hearing schedule for you all as well. With that, I'll pause and just double check with any of the staff or with Brian and David if I've missed anything or anything additional color commentary you want to add on the schedule.
I think you covered it really well, Justin. I mean, you all heard a lot about communities of interest, and I think, you know, we know what the city boundaries are. Like, we know what the current supervisorial district boundaries are. We know what like contiguity is. We know what all these other things are. The communities of interest is kind of that unknown to a certain degree element to the map drawing. And so getting all this information in the next 5 meetings from the residents in those specific districts and letting you all kind of digest kind of what they think represent communities of interest is just super important to this process. And so that's really kind of the key of these upcoming meetings, in addition to kind of engaging the community and ensuring they know how to participate and how to draw these maps like we just saw today.
I'm sorry, Justin, I may have missed it. Did we confirm that we definitely are going to have a quorum for Saturday? Because that's one of the things we wanted to make sure tonight that we do before we go ahead and notice that meeting.
Thank you, David. No, we didn't, and that's an important thing. As of this afternoon, we had not yet had a quorum respond that they could make Saturday's meeting. And so I would guess I would just ask, just sort of in an informal way, if there are commissioners who have not yet accepted the calendar invitation who will be able to attend this Saturday's meeting. If you could just say so now, so we can.
Or maybe, Justin, I don't know whether this is simpler, if folks could just raise their hands if they're going to be able to attend on Saturday. Would that work?
You are a Zoom maestro, David. Yes, that's it. See, yeah, there we go.
And I can tell you how many hands are raised.
I count 8 so far. So that's great.
Exactly.
Did my hand go up? I can't see myself for some reason.
Yes, it did.
Okay, great.
Obviously, it'd be great if we could get more than 8 because that's the minimum that
bare
we need.
minimum, yeah.
But and actually, are all of the okay? I'm sorry, I'm talking out loud. I'm just making sure that they're all commissioners. Okay. All right. It's
So thank you. I think we will go ahead and proceed with the Saturday meeting then. We have already put the general meeting schedule into newspaper ads, as Emma mentioned earlier, but all of them sort of refer to the website, which has the latest schedule, including the update about this rescheduled meeting we need for the 16th, likely moving to the 23rd. It's a technical thing, but this Saturday's meeting, just given the timeframes, will technically be agendized as a special meeting, just because we're less than 72 hours. We certainly, though, don't want that to prevent the word getting out, and we have already started the outreach for that Saturday's meeting. So that's really more of a technical distinction about the posting of the agenda, as opposed to us doing the outreach to get the word out about Saturday's meeting. But we did want to confirm today with you all that we had enough folks to actually proceed with the meeting on Saturday. Why don't I go ahead and pause there and see if there's any questions for staff?
Chair Lawrence, I do see two hands raised from Commissioner Romero and then Commissioner Monzon Ruiz. Commissioner Romero, go ahead.
Justin, just a quick question. So the schedule, I'm looking at it online, which reflects what's in our agenda. It doesn't say the specific districts. And so is that on purpose, that it's not being sort of shared with the public that way, that, you know, District 1 is intended for, or the September 11th meeting has like a special focus or some focus on District 1 and so on and so forth? Is that on purpose?
Yeah, so we were really, thank you for that question. We're really trying to balance information with accessibility. And so what we have done is just for the general schedule, like what was in the Philippine News and the Daily Journal, does not specify the district, but when the specific like social media posts about it and the targeted, I should say that particularly the targeted outreach to those districts that Office of Community Affairs will do, will say, I think the exact phrase is what I said earlier, all are welcome. This meeting will have special focus on. And so that we're trying to balance both. Anybody can come to any meeting, whatever's accessible, but if this particularly appeals to you, go to this District 1 meeting or District 2 meeting. But we don't want you to feel like if you can't make Saturday's meeting, that means you've missed your opportunity to make any comments about communities of interest within current District 1.
A couple follow-up questions. So you guys have done such a great job with the presentations. And so I'm just wondering, is like Kristen or someone from the same organization, are they going to be there to sort of guide us through, or guide, not us, but guide the community members through this process, since we're looking at it for the first time and it's a couple days away?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. And then the last question I had was, at what point are we going to sort of be, or do we even know the criteria that the Board of Supervisors will ultimately use to select like these maps? Because my sense is that this question from the audience or from the public will come up in some shape or form. Does that make sense, that question?
I'm probably gonna hand this over to council, but the criteria about the priorities in that list, the one that you're using to, what you will use to ultimately make a recommendation on the map, is the same criteria that the board is subject to as well. But I'll go ahead and hand it over to David or Brian to say more.
Yeah, that's correct. The board is bound by the same criteria. The touchstone is substantial equality in population, then the Voting Rights Act, and then the kind of rank ordered state criteria that we discussed. So they're subject to the same rule.
Commissioner Monson?
Yes, thanks for the schedule heads up, but I'm trying to digest the speed. I sign up for this commission to participate as much as possible. I'm just wondering, if we as a commission have a say on that schedule. Like, for example, we're 15 commissioners. Do we have a opportunity that you can ask us somehow our availability for those dates, or is coming from your schedule? Just curious. I like to, have a voice also, right? And we're setting an example how we're engaging the community. So this is a good example. The way that we organize is the way that we're going to go to our communities. So I just want to have a sense of I will do respect all your schedule already that you plan, but as for example, the week of the 20th for me, I'm out of town. Now the 23rd could be another one. So now I have two meetings that I might be missing. I don't feel comfortable with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Monson. And we definitely appreciate that this first set of meeting has come out with extreme speed. And we know we did not consult with you all. I apologize for that, but there's reasons for it, and we don't expect to have that same way of having to do it in the future. We were really in a very, very tight schedule between when you all were appointed and when the census data is going to come out. We basically had to reverse engineer the time that the board needs to have its meetings. You need to have a certain set of meetings when you have access to the maps and you can discuss the maps. And then before that, we had to have a certain number of in-district meetings where we did this initial outreach. And so because of that, we essentially had to have 5 or 6 meetings within a 2-week process, balancing availability of the consultant's schedule, ability to be able to staff these meetings. We were not able to also account for all the commissioner schedules. Now, when we did receive specific responses, when possible, we did what we could, but we were very limited given that we needed to have about 6 meetings in about 2 weeks. However, on the meetings in October, where you will be really engaging and discussing with each other and starting to implement all of the feedback and the input that we've received with the community, we will definitely want to make sure that we can have as many of you available for those meetings as possible. So when we schedule those, we will do some sort of doodle poll or something to get your feedback and make sure that we can get as many of you available as possible, still balancing all those things we're trying to balance on this really tight schedule that's been made very tight by the release of the census data, but we definitely will want your feedback on that. And my apologies to the crazy schedule that we've asked you to commit to, and appreciate that you didn't have a chance to give us your feedback on it. That is not ideal. That's not how we typically like to do business and how we like to engage with our commissions. So appreciate all of your patience with the meeting schedule on the next 2 weeks, but we hope to do a better job for the meetings after that.
And I'll just add to that really quickly, kind of the way that I would view it is, these district specific meetings are really the opportunity for you all to get all the data and information that you're going to need to actually kind of discuss and draw these draft maps in October, right? So this is the time when the community is giving you all the information you're going to need. It's giving the community an opportunity to learn how to use this tool. And then when it comes to October, you're going to have enough time to actually review that data, digest that data, and consider kind of the draft maps that you're going to submit to the board. And as Justin mentioned, the board has an absolute hard deadline of December 15th. If it doesn't draw or approve a map by that date, like some judge, unelected judge in Superior Court draws the map for us. And so we really need to get it done by the 15th. And the board also has to have enough meetings to comply with whatever requirements it needs to finalize those maps. And so it's really just a consequence of the late census data, as Justin mentioned, and then having to have that hard deadline of December 15th, which, despite the fact that the census data is, months behind schedule, that deadline is not shifted at all, which is why we actually have to kind of really crunch this or compress this time schedule. But again, these district-specific meetings are allowing the public to give you all the information you need to kind of, prepare those draft maps to submit to the board.
Commissioner Chow, followed by Commissioner Albert. Commissioner Chow, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the presentations. They were really good information. I want to know if some of those collaterals, does it have explanation what it means to the public? Because a lot of the public might not know what it means by joining the district. What is it good for me to get involved and voice my opinion about the district lines, so I can share with my networks and my neighbors and my community?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yeah, it's a really, that's the question for when you're trying to develop this collateral that's half a page or a postcard. How can you do it? We surveyed some other jurisdiction, how they're doing it. On this particular one, we settled on a set of questions. And so yes, it's not an information dump. We settled on a set of questions, which are, why are supervisorial lines important? What I'm blanking on the second one, but
what is it good for me? Yeah.
Yeah, what's good for me, and then what makes your community unique, so that folks can give that, and then we say, come find out at the meeting. And then coupled with that, there's FAQs on the website. But yes, that's the balance we're trying to strike, is enough to give folks a sense that it's important, but not an information dump that's sort of difficult to read on a social media post. But we are very sensitive to that, Commissioner Chow. And this first round of collateral is out there. But if you all see it and you have recommendations for ways we can do it better going forward for the additional meetings in the future, we would gladly take that feedback.
Okay. Could this be also like all these meetings that are scheduled? Could they be in like the SMC alert to just get more publics to know that we are having this kind of meeting?
Yes, we can look at that. I know that there are first responders have certain kind of parameters that they put on SMC alerts. We can look on whether or not this would qualify, and we can get the word out through that. Yeah, okay, sounds good. And one question for Kristen on the presentations. I see that the target was 152,888 people in each district. So if you multiply that by 5, you get like 764,000. It doesn't come to the total that you have in the 500,931. Is the numbers the elected vote, or what's the 500,931?
So the 500,000 is only citizens over 18. So that's why it's much lower than the total population. Yeah.
Oh,
so
I see.
If you take it and multiply that ideal size by 5, you'll get that 764. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
1,000.
I see. The number of bodies. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. Just initially, Suki, quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just I wanted to deal with that problem that you had mentioned. Just a quick question for Justin. These initial meetings that I understand you're under the gun to set up without getting full input from the commissioners as to their own schedules. They are primarily, I think I heard somebody say, ones where we are not going to be participating. We're basically listening. And if that's in fact correct, are you going to be recording them so that commissioners who, for whatever reason, can't attend or want to re-listen to something can go back and play the meeting back and listen to it? I mean, that's not ideal, but it's something.
Yes, so these will be discussion items only, no action items at these. It's really a listening tour, if you will. And yes, we're both recording the meetings so you could actually watch them again. And we are capturing all the public comment in written form, basically transcribing the public comment into a matrix that can also be referenced by the commissioners, and it will be on the website.
Thank you. And I don't mean at all to, I understand exactly where Commissioner Monzon is coming from with the concern. And it's unfortunate because of all of the COVID-19 impacting the constitutional requirement to get the census rework done. But that may help some people whose schedules don't permit them to attend the meetings that want to. Thank you.
Chair Lawrence, you're on mute. Sorry.
I was going to say, thank you for all the questions. The last item I see is commission member reports. I understand this is a time for just general comments by the commission. So why don't we just go around the table and let everybody, 60 seconds to comment or question or whatever. If there's none, I don't want to take up any more time at all.
If commissioners have to say something, maybe they can raise their hand in Zoom.
Yeah.
So I do see 2 hands raised.
Okay.
Commissioner Albert, followed by Commissioner Azos.
Thank you, Chair. And great job stepping into the chair role in the middle of the second meeting. So thank you. Appreciate your leadership. I had 2 quick questions, which since they're not technically related to agenda items, Brian or David may not be able to answer tonight, but I'm fine if the answers don't come back till next time. And if they can't answer them tonight, that's great. The first question is, I used to be an alternate until this meeting, and I just would like to understand whether or not alternates are allowed to participate in the discussion. I know they don't vote, but are they allowed to ask questions and participate in the discussion? Because I was unclear about that last week. That's the first of 2 questions.
I would say that even if the alternates don't have if they're not voting, they can certainly participate through public comment during that kind of portion. And again, with each agenda item, there is an opportunity for public comment, and I would encourage the alternates to participate like through that venue. That's probably the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you, Brian. And my second and last question was kind of a protocol, and maybe it may even be a legal constraint on this. Are commissioners allowed to contact staff members and/or consultants outside of these forums individually? I'm not talking about potential Brown Act violations, to discuss issues or raise questions that they may have as individuals that didn't come up in the course of the meeting.
I mean, if you have a question for staff, you're certainly encouraged to reach out, and I would encourage that.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
appreciate
if I could second that, yes, Commissioner Olbert, all of you, please, I've given my email address. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will say, if you have a question specifically for the consultant, if you would pass it through staff first, just because our consultants work with are spread thin on a lot of other different clients, and so we can help manage the questions to them and get them answered for you. But please don't hesitate, email, call, happy to talk. If you have questions, want more information, happy to respond.
Same with us. If you have a question that is for some reason geared to David or me, feel free to reach out.
Mr. Azos?
I was curious whether in general, David, maybe you can speak to this about the 2013 cycle. Did we end up with a map that was submitted by somebody? Did we end up with a map that was drawn by the commission, or is it somewhere in the middle?
Somewhere in the middle. I can actually, it's funny that you asked that question, because I was just looking at an old board memo that sort of described the process from 2013 and how it played out. And I'm happy to circulate that to you and anybody else who wants it.
Yeah, I would be interested to see that. The other piece I was thinking about is, for example, if we end up having to subdivide cities, there's a thing on Facebook called a Buy Nothing group, where people share items with people who are located in their area. Once you reach some certain point, it gets split in some way. Like, I don't know, that could be a reasonable community of interest. In general, how should I just go into a tool and drop that in? Should I wait for people in the community to do that? How do we kind of think about those? I don't know who that question goes best to, but
I think that's probably a Kristen question. I mean, from a legal standpoint, I mean, we can, anything that you think is a community of interest, we can consider whenever you want us to consider it. But as far as like actually dropping something in and timing on that,
so there is if you're going to be drawing district boundaries, there is a state law that prohibits us from doing that for 7 days after that release of the data on the 20th. But that's to give members of the public a chance to do so.
Okay, basically we wait for the data release on the 20th. We wait until the 27th, probably the 28th to be safe, and then we can kind of start playing with the tool as well.
Yes.
I also have Kristen, I have a really wonky question for you here, which is, it looks like variance is going to double count people who are misplaced in a district. So basically, if you have a district which is off by one person, then one district is going to be over by one person and one district is going to be under by one person. So in the absolute value, that'll get counted twice.
That's a good question. I don't think so, because it's the deviation is from the ideal value.
No, but the
so
deviation will be +1 in one district and -1 in another district. So if you're summing an absolute value, you're going to get 2.
Correct.
So effectively, every one person who's in the wrong spot counts for 2 people in terms of the deviation.
Yes.
And that's just like, but I'm assuming it's just like some standard calculation that gets used. So like, even though I want it to be deviation over 2, it's really going to be.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
There's no further questions. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Second.
A second?
Yes, a
All
second.
in favor? Great. Thank you.
Aye.
Great first meeting. All right. I'll see everybody Saturday morning, bright and early.
Thank you, Chair. The time is
Good
now
night. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
The time is 8:32 p.m. and the meeting's off the record. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.